Does the sheriff's office have poor morale and high turnover? And if so, how does it affect the operation and how can it be fixed?
Okay, for the purpose of brevity, I'm going to go ahead and read my statement because if I start going off of that, I might blow it out of proportion. I have a gift to gab, but I also sometimes can blab. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize this by reading it. A happy and healthy employee is a wealthy employee. Turnover is much from low morale as it is cost of living. And living in the Keys is a way of life. It's not just a cost of life. There's more to happiness than just making more money. For some of us, we enjoy living in the Keys, and we encourage that the officers that we hire to enjoy and love living in the Keys as well. There are many things that would lessen the blow of our cost of living, which we've discussed earlier, is a factor in making it affordable for officers to live here. I would say the way to fix it is to come up with some affordable workforce housing options, like placing people in small cabin type style for single type officers or couples or whatever, and some of our county properties, or encouraging as we develop that developments come up with those type of housing units available for officers. We could also come up with some solutions for almost all our officers have children. They have to put the children in daycare. We have 400 and some employees. It means a lot of them have kids that have to go to daycare. Coming up with a common solution to those problems could be a good area to look in. We could also increase vacation time to make it more attractive for those officers to stay. But the true answers, though, will ultimately come from the employees themselves, and I will treat them like family and work tirelessly to find more reasons for them to stay than to leave. Leadership starts by example, and I have pledged to basically divide that gap between the us versus them mentality. That I have pledged that I will basically work for the salary that a senior sergeant makes for my first term in office. Of course, the state pays that salary to me, but I've pledged that as a good faith offering to show the troops that it's not just about the money, and there's more things involved in doing this job than doing it for the money. It should be for the people. And basically what my plan is to, at the end of the year, take that after-tax money and divide it equally amongst all the corrections officers and deputies that work in the high-risk pay areas, and take all the negative connotations of the working holidays, vacation days with their family, etc. Instead of having a nice cushy office job, I want to reward them for that and tell them that we're all in it together. We're one team and one family. And as a family, we can protect and take care of yours. Thank you.
Good news is I'm not going to bore you with my numbers again, because I've already hit you with most of these already. So it'll shorten my answer. I think there is a morale problem, and there is obviously a high turnover rate at the Sheriff's Office. It's a big problem. The numbers the Sheriff's Office mentioned, it's the lowest in 10 years, was about 10.5%. The numbers I did myself came from FDLA, numbers the Sheriff's Office reports to FDLA, and it's not just based on people retiring, people leaving, and not being replaced. How I did it is based on the number of law enforcement officers reported to FDLE and the number of law enforcement officers hired here at the Sheriff's Office. So it's actual deputies we hired in 2011. That's how I got up with the 10.6 number, which is a couple tenths off of their number, no big deal. But I just want to explain that was actual number of deputies we're losing. In 2011, we lost. In 2011, we lost 15 deputies. So we hired 15 deputies. FHP determined it cost $88,000 to train a law enforcement officer. Based on the number we hired in 2011, that's 15. That's $1.32 million that we spent to train deputies. That's certainly money we could spend somewhere else. What else is affected by us not keeping our officers? Our ability to not effectively prosecute criminal cases. I've spoken with both of the last two state attorneys, and both of them agree that inexperienced officers with lack of training, poor report writing, poor ability to testify, affects their ability to prosecute criminal cases. It affects their success rate to prosecute criminal cases. What also happens is our community doesn't benefit from that $88,000 we invested in them to train them. After 3 or 4 years, they leave and go to another community who benefits from that money we spent on them, that $1.32 million. 2011. These deputies, my goal is, and I know I didn't come off too well defending the driving the cars out of the county. I'm not a fan of it. I'm just saying we have to do something to decrease our turnover rate. The ultimate goal is to get every officer that we hire to commit to this agency for 25 years. If we had guys like Rick, Tom, Jake, and Matt, if all of our guys were like them, like the sheriff, 32 years here, if we had guys that dedicated their entire careers to this community, we wouldn't have a problem with turnover rate. We wouldn't have a problem with poor testimony in court, with bad reports, with having problems with prosecuting crimes. It would be perfect. We would benefit from spending that money. And it's okay to spend that money once or twice. If we only have to spend it once every 25 years, I think it's great. But I think that's how poor morale and high turnover affect the sheriff's office. We must fix this for our community. The first step to fixing this is admitting we have a problem. Thank you.
How does poor morale affect everything? Well, if your officers aren't happy, you're not going to treat the public right. And that's a big problem. And the officers that I know and the officers that I work with, they're afraid to come to work. They're in fear of getting harassed. They're in fear of being in trouble for doing nothing. And these are the officers I work with, and I talk to a lot of officers. I know most of the officers, and they tell me this all the time. They're afraid to come to work. They're afraid of getting in trouble. They're afraid of being harassed. And when you have officers that feel that way, the way they treat the public is not good. And I also talk to the public, and the public tells me a lot of the officers are not friendly. They're aggressive. They don't treat them well. And the reason is the officers do not feel comfortable coming to work. And that's another reason that they leave this county, is that they don't feel comfortable here, they're not treated right, and they leave. And I would like to change that, and the way to change that is start treating them fairly, and to have a work environment where they feel safe and where they feel like they can come and do their job without being treated poorly for their decisions or for who they may choose to talk to or whatever the reason may be, that they can come to work and not be afraid to come to work and do their job. And also to train the officers so they feel comfortable doing some of the things. We have officers that are uncomfortable doing things. And the training should be, there should be more training in areas where officers feel uncomfortable. And there's a lot of areas where they'll respond to calls and they're not sure what to do because of their training. And that falls back on to the departmental training and also the field training officers. Some of the field training officers, they teach the officers from the very beginning not to be better officers and sometimes to not handle the calls properly. And if you can make the call go away, then we don't have to deal with it. And the public tells me this, and I see the officers being trained that way. And what we need to do is train them well, treat them with respect as adults and professionals, so they do a better job for the community, and they want to stay here and continue to work here and not leave. Thank you.
Well, first I want to touch on what Bill was talking about, the 88,000 train employee. That's an FHP number, and how they come up with that number is the fact that they've got a person they hire as a full-time employee. The FHP Academy is about 5+ months up in Tallahassee. Then when they come down, they're in a 4 or 5 month FTO program, training in the field. The reality is, Sheriff's Office is not consistent with how FHP hires their people. Sheriff's Office does not predominantly send people to an academy and pay them as an employee. Almost every employee we have came to us with certification in hand and said, I want to have a job. I just went to the academy, graduated, I'm looking for a job. Or, I'm a police officer or a deputy sheriff in some other county, I would like to transfer and get a job with you. People come to us already certified. We don't have to pay $88,000 and have these people trained. Right now we have about 40 people in our applicant pool looking for jobs here. Officers with multiple time and grade as a deputy, sergeant, supervisor who want to come work for the Sheriff's Office. We don't have the jobs for them. They're in our pool, and event spots come open, but we're not sending people to the academy. So the $1.something million cost he's talking about is untrue. It's not a fact. But the question at hand talks about morale and turnover. There's no question that there's a direct correlation between morale and turnover. But as we've said earlier, still, Sheriff's Office has, in the last 12 years, has continued to come down, even before the economy collapsed. I say, and I believe truly, that morale is good. Only difficult thing is, we hear different opinions from different candidates, but there's no real morale meter. You know, we have good men and women. I think they're treated fairly. They've received raises the last 3 years. Got new uniforms, new guns last year. They got great cars, great equipment. You know, it's a good job. They have good benefits. They have good training if they want to get training. So, you know, but it is difficult to be in charge as the leader to make those difficult decisions. You can do 20 things great for somebody. One decision doesn't go their way. Unfortunately, sometimes we're bad people. I'll give you an example of a recent policy that I had put into place, which was not very popular with the men and women. And it's become better, but I made the decision that it was a right decision, not the popular decision. That's a speed policy. I put a policy in place, basically a zero tolerance on speeding officers. This came into place 2 years ago after the unfortunate death of Melissa Powers. A shame, terrible situation. 106 miles an hour when she lost control, crashed, comparison, terrible crash. After that, true sign of leadership is stepping up, taking appropriate, immediate action. I took swift action. The next day, I implemented a policy outlining responsibilities of the supervisors and deputies. Put a policy in place that no deputy will run lights and sirens, code, call, unless they receive permission from a supervisor. The sergeant who has to evaluate the call, evaluate what they're going to, and does it merit a high-speed run. And we give examples of what we would and would not expect them to do. I put in a policy places no more than 2 units running the call, unless a sergeant evaluated and says yes or no to more than 2 patrol cars going to a call. We put arbitrator camera systems in cars, which come activated on a certain mile per hour. They'll kick on automatically, and it will automatically videotape what's going on. We now do, once a month, we pull those reports of any time that camera's kicked on. We send them out to the district commanders. They're required to review those videos, pull those videos from the server, look at the video, see what the officer was going through. What was the call? Was it a priority call? How fast were they going? Were they justified to go that fast? If they're not, we take the appropriate action. Bring them in, counsel them, tell them what they, why we don't approve, why we don't think they should have. We document it in a performance evaluation. If it continues, we take appropriate action to continue on to solve the problem. We are taking a zero stance on speeding officers. In fact, a policy which was not popular, and I admit that, received rave reviews. I was noted in the Orlando Sentinel about my policy being state-of-the-art, proactive, and that other agencies should step up and do what the Sheriff's Office of Monroe did. Editorial and the keynoter said the same thing. Bold, proactive, move to combat speeding officers. The reality is, half the men and women killed in law enforcement are killed in high-speed driving, most of which weren't justified in the first place for the speeds they were going. So, it's just, those decisions aren't always popular and do at times make officers not happy. But that's just part of being a leader, making the right decisions. But we treat our people good. I think the people have good morale here, and I think we do support them. And once again, as I said earlier still, I'm proud of this agency, and I'm proud of the men and women that work here. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, some of the candidates I tend to agree with, some I don't. Is there a morale issue? Yes, there is. Okay. Is there a high turnover rate? Yes, there is. Rick, hold up the annual report there for us. Get with the sheriff. Look at the number of employees, 0 to 10 years, and then look at the 10 to 20 some odd year range. You will notice a great difference in the 0 to 10 to the smaller numbers going from the 10 to 20. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been a training ground for other agencies. People come here to get the training and they leave. The reason why they're leaving, along the lines of what Rick was saying, I put a policy in place. Didn't say we continue with training to follow up so that mistake wouldn't happen again, but I put a policy in place. The problem with some of the policies, folks, they're not fair. They're picked and choose depending on who you are and how the people get treated. As the other candidates are saying, yes, people feel intimidated. They're in fear for their jobs. They don't want to come to work. They're looking to greener pastures. South Florida is talking about 300 jobs, I'm guessing October, and I'm looking for the Upper Keys to lose 7 to 10 people that are going to go to Miami to work. Ladies and gentlemen, we can't afford to pay huge paychecks out to keep people here. However, if we create a fair, stable work environment where people want to stay, and you're treating them right, you train them, you get their knowledge up, they take pride in the work that they do. Yeah, that money's always going to be an issue to a point, but if somebody's happy and they want to stay here, they're going to stay here. And guess who's going to benefit from all this? You are, as a taxpayer, because you're going to have a deputy or an employee that's knowledgeable, knows how to answer your questions, knows how to handle your cases, is well-trained and able to go to court and help a prosecutor prosecute a case and convict a criminal. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for a fresh set of eyes to come in, take a look, and a fresh set of training. Thank you.